right. Good morning. Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I wanted to walk you guys through some methodologies that I use and some of my analysis. I've been working on a table where I can produce some pivot analysis and just in general analyze this whole dividend income sector in order to help the channel. So having said that, let's jump in here now that I've built this thing and got it fairly organized. If you see something I'm missing, give me a shout out in the comments and I'll certainly add that. But I know there's a lot on here. I would have preferred it just be all black with color, but the way the tables want you to use certain color layouts, they contrast the lines. So I may play around and just override the table and put my own stuff. But I wanted to show you what you can do because I see a lot of different kinds of things. So here's some of my fun families. I know Defiance is not hugely popular, but it's always good to have the least performer when it comes to the index guys that are paying. Now that YieldMax is going there, Roundhill is sort of king of the table. There's some bigger BlackRock iShares. Um, Clearly, Defiance is lagging mainly because of the NAV erosion. They're paying very well. Granted, it's got their yield boost fund out. Curve, you guys know that I always think in certain situations, Curve does a better job. Neos, Pro Shares, especially when you get into some of the Ethereum and Bitcoin, Rex for Appy, Seppi, Feppy, Roundhill, of course, and then YieldMax is really the monster in terms of the amount of funds that they have. So let's say that I want to come in here and I want to do I don't want to select everything. I want to say, well, within the YieldMax, and then I'm going to look within YieldMax, not their targeted, not their portfolio. Say I just want to look at the single stock funds, right? So you can see I've thought this thing out and broken some of the data out. And then what I can do with this is now interesting. You got fiat, one of the inverse funds, right? So when that works, you get a high yield, but is yield the whole part of the equation? Absolutely not, right? You want to look at total returns. So for the purposes of this database, if you will, I've organized the data so I can search, analyze, do anything I want and talk about it. And I broke it into three categories. So I said, or multiple categories. So we've got to have a family fund. We've got to have an ETF. What type is it? Is it a single stock? Is it a portfolio? Is it targeted income? You can see some of the types, right? So I have an index, a portfolio, a single stock, or a targeted. All right. So in this case, I've just done YieldMax since they have so many. And then I've said, okay, well, how often do they pay? Well, all the single stocks pay monthly, but they are in different groups, right? So we don't want to get into group names because some of the other people don't label them as groups, but they effectively, like Curve, they pay like they're in a group A, group B, group C, group D. They just allocate them to weeks. So you guys that are really love the weekly, don't get me wrong, it's a nice high or a fix when you get an injection of income, no doubt. Um, so I list the week. So if I want to go, like if you just wanted to analyze this and say, I need somebody for group three, I don't have, even though Coney would come to mind if I was you, let's say that I wanted to look for something in group three. I'm sorry, in group C or week three, right? I just break that down. But in this case, I'm going to leave them all because I want to analyze yield. I want to look at what's the three mean 3 months. Okay. So understand I could annualize this, but I know you guys have calculators there. You know, if it's a 3 month yield, just multiply it times four and you're going to have 12. I mean, you're going to have your annual. So 8860, right? That's what fiat is doing. I think most of you would rather look at MSTY because I'm not done yet. Okay. So MSTY is up there with 88.12, right? In the 3 month yield when you annualize it. Now, what I said is that's only part of the equation. What about NAV? Well, fiat's got a 19% negative NAV. So what's its total return? Only 311, 3.11%. Well, MSTY's actually a little worse, right? And that's rare for MSTY, but look at the 3 month price. So what I did, whenever I look at these, I look at right up before declaration day or the day before, never on ex-dividend day, for that 3 months. So 3 months going back, you got February payments, you've got January payments, and you've got December payments in there. So it would be right before the December declaration. That's how I choose. And sometimes I can be unlucky for a particular stock going through a cycle, being pushed down, Bitcoin, etc. But it is what it is. That's why I show you the yield on a 3 month basis. You get it what the yield is every time I report, or another YouTuber or anybody, or you see the sheet from YieldMax, you see the 1 month, right? They take what it paid, what's the stock price at, calculate the yield, and multiply it times 12 and say, what's the annual yield? So anyway, so I have a 6 month yield. Look at this, will you? Look at the 6 month on MSTY. Why? Because the stock went back to 2165 at that 6 month period. And now it's trading at 24.72. By the way, all these are at the close as of Thursday. So I was 3/4 of the way done with the table. And then I finished it up Friday evening. So I just made everything I added to have Thursday's close, right? So I can update all these to be, Friday or something, or just keep them up to date. But just so you know, so here, and why is some of them blank? Because they haven't been around long enough to give us a 12-month yield. So you can see here that me and we all know, but MSTY, and look at MSTY. MSTY only has, I make a note in here, 11 months of payment so far, because as we scroll over here, um, what I do when it's waiting for February, right? Because we've just finished declaring and paying weeks 1 and week 2 across all kinds of funds. Well, when you have a yellow box, it means we're waiting for more. If it's a yellow box with blue in it, it's a weekly payer, meaning, okay, that it's paid some of the money, right? 2 of the 4 weeks, right? So you have all these, some funds are monthly, but they go across the week. Some are pure weekly. And so I say all in them. When you go back over here to this guy, I came up with, and I'm doing YieldMax single stock. But as soon as I went to something else that had weekly, or that paid weekly on the week, I say all because they pay every week, right? So a lot of analysis, I use this myself to decide to jump in on something like art caught my attention. Why? Because it's showing up on the 3 month. It never shows up on anything, right? And I got to look and I did some studying this weekend. Here's ARC. Okay, it's not 599, in terms of, you got to remember that's times 4. So that says just on ARC alone, where's my 5 number? Yeah. So on ARC alone, call it 6 times 4 is 24% yield annual based on its 3 month run rate. This says 6 month yield, you double that, right? 2 times 6 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12, and 1 times 12 is 12. So you're at 34, 30, that's really 36%. This is or sorry, no, this is at. So these numbers are trending. This one's trending a little under this guy, but this guy over the 6 month is doing pretty well. Well, why is that? Because the stock is starting to come back up. Okay, I mean it was looking like it was going to reverse split and all that. It was one of the ugly ones like Murny. I think Murny's 350 or something. But anyway, guys, there's so much. So I'm going to use this. Not only will I give you actuals when I'm giving you update, I'm going to try to do some analysis. If you have questions, if you want to see something, if there's a new fund I'm missing, I'm sure there's some out there, um, for sure. But that's what I'm doing with this. And it just gives me so many different ways to look at it. How about the classic? And I've done this before in my stuff. Let's go look at curve and YieldMax. Okay. So now the only funds in here, we can start seeing when they intersect. And we can look at 3 months, we can look at 6 months. Okay. Why the price is relevant, I need to always have a price point. So when I know what all the payments during that period of time, you have to have a price to work off of to generate your yield. So this is 11 months of payments. It's just a monster, Misty, and yet it's volatile. If you go in it at the wrong time and you buy it at $40 and it's on its way back to 20, you're collecting a bunch of payments still, but you might be break even or negative. Like I said here, technically your 3 month return in Misty is -4, but what's your 6 month return? 14% gain on the NAV, 96% win overall, right? Which gives it, like a 190. And then you look here in 12 months, which it's only made 11 payments. So it's almost 12 months. Um, and here it is at 174% total return. I don't have to tell, most of you guys know, right? But if you didn't and you wanted to look, so let's go out. So I did. Let me follow up with what I was talking about with the curve analogy, right? So here's TSLP, right? I've always said that sometimes it does really good. Here's Tesla up here. Now, there's no question when you compare curve, YieldMax is almost always going to pay 1.5, 2 times, 2 times plus the yield typically. But that's not the whole story, especially with a few of these stocks. They're just much, much better um, in curve. So here's an example. Here's Tesla, 21.18 for its 3 month yield. What's its 3 months NAV? Well, it lost 21.29. Okay. So let's go here to curve, and here's curves. They made 11% yield, just a little more than half, right? 11.07 to 21.18. Now, in some fairness to them, they lost 20%. Okay. So their effective -960 is saying over the last 3 months, Tesla, which is almost break even, has done a better job. But let's go to the 6 month scenario for those guys, right? Here's a 6 month total return. Tesla's doing well. It lost 14% on its NAV, but with its high yield, right, it's getting up there to 26.18. And look at this, 2676. We're positive on the NAV because we have to be, because I say curve doesn't pay as much, right? So those are close enough that I'd still argue in that one, YieldMax is coming back. It's probably the spreads, it's some of the things they're doing differently. What's the 12-month return? Well, the 12-month return is 30%, and they lost 30 on the NAV, so they're yielding over 60%, right, in order to still have a positive gain. How did curve do? I could just go through, by the way, on ETFs, I could just go right in and say, watch this. I think I'll do it for the purposes. let's go to the T's because there's a new one here. Let's do Tesla. Here, let me wipe all of these out. Okay, and only show you curve, YieldMax, and where is my other T? I just added that from Granite. I don't know why it disappeared. I'll check. Oh, you know what? I don't have the fund selected. Okay, I'll look at it in a second. I should have done it a different way. I already did this, and so sometimes you got to go back and get all of it. All right, here's all this stuff. Now, this is how I would do this one. Just go straight to the T's. TSYY, TSLY, and this. So here's your 3 Tesla funds, right? Granite Yield Boost. There's their weekly payers. They all are organized on the monthly, but they pay in different weeks, right? So how's YieldMax doing? Well, from a yield standpoint, and this is some fairness to this guy. These have a history of 3 payments. This one's only had, I think, 2 payments. So don't count out yield boost out. It hasn't yet. What does a yellow box mean? It means they haven't paid yet this month. Curve is already paid this month because it pays on week 1. So week 3 and week 4 remain to be paid. But Curve and Tesla have already been making all their payments. They've only had one payment so far in January. And its payment was bigger than YieldMax's, but less than Curve's. So that kind of stuff, right? So here we are saying, hey, they're 3 month, they're not getting killed because they came out at 25.47. Whoops. And the 3 month, oh yeah, that's gone up. So they started at 24.26 on this 3 month period, which this is the oldest it goes back. It doesn't go back the full 3 months, right? But so far they're up 5% and 8% um, in that scenario because the NAV is up 499 and they've had a 305 yield. Uh, and they have another payment to make in February. And that would have only been a 2 months out of the 3 months in paying yield. That's why they're significantly lower. So anyway, peoples, this gives you a lot of things that you can do. And I'm excited to have it, to work with it, to do all that. I'll try and bring you some fruitful videos around that. So let me recap the fund family. So I've got Granite, Defiance, iShares, Curve, Neos, ProShares, Rex, Roundhill, and YieldMax. So hit me up if you want to see something else added in there, and I'll do that. That's what I got for you. Have a great, great weekend. Again, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation, not financial advice, not a financial advisor. Have a great one. Bye for now.